very good evening and thank you so much for tuning into WION World is One News. I'm Chethy Narula, and as always, as a run-up to the union budget, we are bringing you the budget special. Today, of course, we're discussing the information technology sector in much detail. Now, India is hailed as the IT hub in the world. The software engineers of India are known world over and command considerable dominance over the Silicon Valley of the United States. But it is true that even though our IT industry has made a mark in the global arena, but unable to tap the domestic market. This and more we will be discussing on our show today. Today we're joined by Dr. Jayjeet Bhattacharya, partner at KPMG, and Dr. B.K. Gairola, former Director General of National Information Commission, in our studio. Now, the Union Budget FY17 focused on digital India and financial inclusion impacting the IT and IT-enabled sectors. While the sector has seen a staggering growth in the past few years, a lot is left to be seen as to how the sector shapes up in the upcoming Union Budget, especially in a demonetized economy where most of the transactions are on their way to get digitalized. Let's take a look at the story that tracks the entire ecosystem of the IT service in India.
Digitization is imperative for increasing efficiency of an economy, whether for corporates or citizens. Since India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi took office, he has been keen on making India a digitally driven economy. The announcements made by Finance Minister Arun Jaitley in the past year are expected to give a big boost to Digital India initiatives such as promoting digital literacy, greater application of cloud and digital banking, among others. More so, last year's union budget focused on larger involvement of the post office platform for financial inclusion, including delivery of services. Let's take a look at some of the achievements in the Indian IT sector in the past 2 fiscal years. IT and ITes exports crossed $100 billion. India's share in the global outsourcing industry stood at 56% in 2015. Total employment in the IT/ITES sector stood at 3.7 million for the financial year 2017. As the world's largest outsourcing destination, India is sitting pretty in the IT space with multiple MNCs outsourcing to the country. The sector going forward is pegged to contribute 9.5% to the GDP of India. The industry is getting a further boost from increased allocations to other industries. In electronic manufacturing, the year 2014-15 saw manufacturing of mobile handsets more than double, pointing to potential increase of internet penetration. With an eye on promoting electrical manufacturing, the duty structure saw rationalization. As a result, the domestic manufacturers of routers, broadband modems, set-top boxes, digital video recorders, network video recorders, CCTV cameras, lithium-ion batteries enjoy advantage of 8.5% vis-a-vis imported goods. Here's a look at the trends that will dominate the IT sector going forward. India now has a firm base to implement technology solutions. Feature phones and smartphones will be the key modes of service delivery. The government's push for smart cities will be a trend to watch out for in the coming year. All eyes are now on the Finance Minister's address on the Digital India initiative. With Chethy Narula in New Delhi, Aisha Sindhu, WION.
Well, there you go. That's the lay of the land as far as the IT industry is concerned in India. I'm joined right here in the WION headquarters studio with Jayjeet Bhattacharya, who's the partner at KPMG, and Dr. B.K. Gairola as well, the former chairman of the National Information Commission as well. I'm going to start off with Mr. Bhattacharya first. Now, India's IT industry is usually really dependent on America per se. Now, Trump coming into power and his policies, which are protectionistic in nature, and especially the policies towards the outsourcing industry in India, how do you think India will stand to be impacted once his trade policies are announced?
I think the two different kinds of headwinds that is being faced by the Indian industry. One is exactly what you said, which is the change in leadership and therefore policies in US. The second is also a tectonic change in technology per se. There is extreme automation coming in terms of artificial intelligence and many other such related technologies around cognitive. for which the Indian industry is not really ready. We may have very good software programmers and maybe individual people who are very good at some of these cutting edge technologies, but as corporations who are based out of India, we are not very good in any of these areas. And why the two are related is because if we had cutting edge technologies which is irreplaceable, then it will be very difficult for America to have policies which stops Indian companies in providing these services. But since we do not have those cutting edge differentiated services and offerings and products, it's more of a commodity service that we're offering, and therefore we will get impacted quite significantly if the new administration in US does actually go ahead and put policies which inhibit Indian software exporters, and therefore it is going to be a very challenging year this year.
So we have to wait till Donald Trump takes on as the president, 100 days perhaps into his presidency, and we will know for a fact what his policies really are towards the emerging economies, especially the IT industry in India. Now, we're going to go over to Giles Gibson, who is our chief correspondent in Washington, D.C. Giles, several IT companies out of India are dependent on the H-1B visa, like you have Infosys, Tata Consultancy Services, and many more. How will the Trump statements on curtailing H-1B impact India's IT industry?
We know that some of the biggest players in the Indian outsourcing industry use those visas as a way to really bulk up their personnel. Infosys, for example, one of the biggest players in this arena, over 60% of their workforce in the US are on these H-1B visas. So clearly, if Donald Trump goes after that visa program, tightens up the rules perhaps, or changes the way that they're allocated, then that is clearly going to increase the costs of getting visas and getting their personnel for companies like Infosys, and those higher costs could clearly hit their bottom line going forward.
That was Giles Gibson, who is our chief correspondent in Washington, D.C. Now I'm going to go over to Dr. B.K. Gairala, who will be giving us a lowdown on how the Indian IT industry, of course, you know, we all know it has made a mark abroad, but it seems that there's a lack of internet penetration and, of course, digital literacy as well. And the industry is unable to really tap the domestic market. What do you really think about it? What do you think about the lack of penetration that we see in tier 3, tier 2 cities, in rural India as well? Because this digital literacy that we're talking about is far more restricted to the urban metropolitans in India.
Thank you, and I think you're very right. It's not that this problem has occurred just now. It has been there in almost all sectors, whether you talk about the roads, whether you talk about other mode of transport. The fact remains is that the ability of the customers in the last mile doesn't exist to sustain the technology. What we have done over the last couple of years, tried to get government to take initiatives more in a social function by having national fiber optic network. The idea was that we should be able to put fiber right at the panchayat so that the knowledge that is getting generated in the urban areas and the facilities that are being made available in the urban areas could really be transferred. I would agree with you that tier 2 and tier 3 cities don't understand technology. I go to myself to those places. They understand well. But the problem is the access is expensive, not reliable, and therefore the difficulty in handling these services like payment services. Also, it's important that while we talk about this services the last mile, government services have to be brought on board. It's a chicken and egg situation. Government cannot give PDS online just because access doesn't exist. But on the other hand, there's a demand. So you would see, to my mind, in the next 2 to 3 years, when the fiber optic network comes in, that you will have great demand. A lot of expectation has already been built. The objective is to meet the requirement that we have. That will happen primarily once we are able to get the applications that government has. There are hundreds of applications in Digital India. When they are applied and they are made available with a backend system, you will have the demand coming up, and then you will find the industry going and building it up. Today, it is not economically viable to connect.
Right. I'm going to come over to Jayjeet now. You know, the common man is one customer for the IT industry, but apart from the common man, Any government of any nation, especially the government of India in our case, is one of the biggest customers of IT companies. Do you think the government today is using the IT information technology which is available to its optimum level in India?
Clearly the usage or the disproportionate benefit that you get from IT is yet to be achieved. But if you look at just adoption of IT by the government, that has gone through the inflection point. When we started off and Dr. Garula was leading many of these initiatives, the capacity to procure in the government did not exist. So the finance, the FA of a department would question why a software is being procured at 2 crores when it can be procured at 2 lakhs. The difference between software was not understood. Why a smaller piece of hardware is more expensive than a larger piece of hardware was not understood. Those are small issues that we're building up in terms of the capability of the government to procure IT. We have gone through that process. In the last 10-15 years, we've gone through that process. Now the government has the ability to procure, and they are procuring. But are they using it in a manner which gives disproportionate benefit? That has yet not happened. So we are still converting the brick and mortar process into an electronic process. But just like what existed in the private sector world, where you had businesses coming up which had no correlation to a brick and mortar business, which did not exist in a brick and mortar business, and those services were being provided which gave the disproportionate benefit. For example, a Google or the email system, that has not happened in the government. And unless we do that, the productivity increase that one gets by using these technologies in the government will be quite limited. Having said that, the other point we need to look at is the government in all industries on an average is 20% procurer of any commodity in an economy. And therefore, from the IT perspective also, the government is a very significant procurer of the IT products, including services and telecom and hardware. And therefore, if the government is not able to procure in an optimized manner, it has a multiplier effect in a negative way on the rest of the economy. So it's extremely important that the government has the capacity and the capability across all the governments. I'm not just saying the central government, but the state governments, the local governments, at the panchayat level, at the municipality level, they should be able to procure and use hardware and software and services in an optimal manner. Having said all of this, we must keep in mind that most of the hardware is imported. So every time we say e-governance, we are also importing 96 to 97% of the hardware value from outside. And that has an impact on our foreign exchange, and that has an impact on our current account deficit.
Right, Jayjeet. Now, Dr. Garula, I'm going to come over to you. Now, IT has improved the manner in which the government is functioning massively. I mean, right from the time that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been talking about a digital India, they have been putting the required thrust on digitization in India as well. And now, even more so because of demonetization, there's no other choice but for India when it goes less cash economy from a cash-rich economy. Digital India really and financial inclusion takes center stage. Now, the eBhoomi initiative of the Karnataka government is also something that is under consideration. But why is it that the government is not using IT more and more? We are seeing that there has been a lack of usage of information technology by the government, which is very counter-indicative of what they really want to do as far as Digital India is concerned.
I think I would see it the other way around. Government of India is putting a lot of efforts, state governments are putting a lot of efforts. Technology is being bought, hardware is being bought. But are we able to give the services to the common man? That's a question. It has two distinct reasons. The first is access is not there, which we discussed just earlier, that if last mile doesn't exist, we have difficulty in giving the cyberspace services. The second more important aspect is that the processors that we are using are very old. These processes need to be redefined, process engineering has to be put in place, and then put it onto the system. So what is happening today, while we are buying hardware, we are putting systems in place, but we are using the old processes, thereby not able to get the efficiency that one is looking for, and the productivity one is looking for, including the transparency that one is talking about. So what Government of India in this part of Digital India have said, they would go through lock, stock and barrel and make the process change. But to me, the basic problem is, if you look at the information technology, its induction for services, it is bottom up and not top down. The services at the panchayat and blocks. policies are made at the top. Implementation is right from the top. And therefore, what you find is by the time systems reach up to the last mile, there is no effort left to give the services to the common man. So the main issue would be now whether government is willing to put a lot of effort in process engineering, bringing about the transparency, making information, democratization of information is going to be one of the key challenges that we look for. As Jayajit said, also it's important that if we don't manufacture these things in India, we will not be able to take technology to the last mile because it's going to cost approximately $400 billion per year, which we don't have. So while we need to indigenize, as the government has already said, zero net has to be done as far as the import-export is concerned, process reengineering has to be put in place, bring the transparency. And to my mind, you need to look at the governance reforms before you can really bring in IT.
You know, stay with that thought. We're going to talk about the government's reform and what our expectations are from the union budget, the upcoming one, in just about a bit. It's a good time now for us to take a short break. In my studio, I've got Jayajit Bhattacharya, the partner of KPMG, and Dr. B.K. Gairala, who's the Director General of National Information Centre, or the NIC. Take a break. On the other side, we've got our discussion continuing with them.